Hong Kong authorities sentenced local media tycoon Jimmy Lai to 20 years in jail in February, in a case widely seen as a bellwether for Hong Kong society's political environment. Here's a reaction from Jimmy Lai's own son after hearing about the verdict.
It was expected. We knew that he was going to get this almost comically large sentence. I mean, at 78, 20 years, he'll be close to 100. So basically a death sentence. But it's still heartbreaking. I think it's hit a lot harder than I thought it would.
That was one high-profile example, but there were others. Last year, the NGO Reporters Without Borders, their annual Press Freedom Index, ranked Hong Kong as 140th in the world, a historic low. Also on March 24th this year, Hong Kong police raided a local bookstore called Book Punch and arrested its manager and staff on suspicion of knowingly selling publication with seditious intent. So how is Hong Kong rebalancing between so-called national security and civil liberties? What's Hong Kong media and creative environment like today? And what does it mean for Hong Kongers who have migrated overseas and their new communities? Hello and welcome to Taiwan Talks. I'm Wen Song. To discuss these issues and more, I'm joined by K.C. Wong, visual artist and former Hong Kong Polytechnic University assistant professor, and Lake Louis, National Taiwan University sociology professor. Lake, K.C., thank you both so much for coming onto the show.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting.
All right, so I want to start with Casey, I think with my first question, which is, can you give a general assessment here about Hong Kong today? I know that you came to Taiwan about 5 years ago in 2021, and that you were quoted as saying that Hong Kong society at the time had been kidnapped, quote unquote. Fires on, what's your view today?
Well, I think the passing of the national security law and the Article 23 really affected Hong Kong. In terms of sectors of the society, I think it's all sectors of the society. Although, of course, the Hong Kong government claimed it only affects a small portion of the populations. But if you look at it deeply, you realize it is, in terms of arts, for example, so movies or art exhibitions or play got cancelled. For example, the Hong Kong director Kiwi Chow's recent film, Deadline, which is about high school students studying and suicide, was banned in Hong Kong. But of course, he can exhibit and show that in the cinema of Taiwan. And then you have other sectors such as the civil society, like NGOs, for example. There's like more than 90 NGOs and close to 22 media outlets got shut down. As Jimmy Lai's son, Jimmy got like 20 years for jail sentencing. So media and journalism really got hit hard. And business and legal and technology, even religious and educations are all affected. So I think what's going on in Hong Kong right now is, I call it a silent cultural revolution is going on. So it was kidnapped and then it's now going through a deforming process.
Okay, and how about you, Lake? What's your view in terms of Hong Kong society's state of civil society space over the last year?
I need to highlight that the number of political prisoners nowadays in Hong Kong is really unprecedented in Hong Kong history. And not even in 1967, in the riots in 1967, that there were actually people being killed, right? And that at that time, people were not, there wasn't so many people being imprisoned. And so that's, a really clear indicator of the decline of the civil liberties of people in Hong Kong. And I think there is a recent new law. This time it is about the arrest of the people who sell books. So you can see that this is a new law because it involves the control of knowledge. They distinguish what kind of knowledge is legal and what kind isn't. The second new law, I would say, is related to the control over mourning. Like in the recent year, just the past few months, the Tai Po fire is one of the examples that, during the fire, a lot of people, including the victims' family members, the residents, right, and also the survivors, they gathered together at the square, to mourn over the fire, right, and receive emotional support from regular citizens, volunteers, social workers. But they were dismissed by the police. So even the freedom or the rights to mourn are being controlled. Not to mention that a student was arrested for handing out flyers to ask for the independent investigation of the fire. So, so I would say it's a new low. Yeah.
So it sounds like even trying to find solace in community is becoming politically more sensitive than before. How about you, Casey? I know that you are a performance artist. I know that recently, for example, you held exhibitions in The Hague, in the Netherlands, for example, where you documented Hong Kong's 2019 protests at the time. Of course, now you're living overseas, and I'm wondering, how do you think that Hong Kong artists today, how are they or how can they hold on to creative and artistic freedom to create the artworks, especially in light of a tightening environment like this?
I think using art as a coded method to spread positive messages such as freedom and democracy is a very good way to do it. As art as a tool, because art always was symbolic and abstract, full of allegory to begin with, which is multiple interpretational. And it also allows the people to have some kind of introspection, just like looking at their own emotion, expressing their emotion. As of now in Hong Kong, expressing one's emotion through the arts are still legal, such as if you do a black painting, for example. All right. And also I think using art as a aesthetic kind of vague, nostalgic way of depicting a history of Hong Kong, the texture of the city, for example, is kind of like a therapy. That's why you can see right now a lot of painting about Lion Rock, which is a mountain in Hong Kong.
Lion Rock. Yeah.
Right, which represents the kind of Hong Kong spirit. Regarding my exhibition at The Hague, I think doing exhibition outside of Hong Kong, in Taiwan or in Europe, in an English context is still kind of safe to celebrate the great resistance spirit of Hong Konger, and using art as a kind of Trojan horse to share maybe through virtual gallery with people of Hong Kong. So I think that's different strategy of kind of using art as a resistance tool in Hong Kong and also outside of Hong Kong.
Okay, that's interesting. So art as a conduit emotionally, but also as perhaps a lower risk way for finding and building that community.
That's right.
Okay, and Lei, I know that you are a sociologist. Of course, you study migration patterns, and I'm wondering, when it comes to how you look at Hong Kong people's migration decisions in recent years, do you see any new trend, especially over the last year or two? For example, what kind of people decide to go away? What kind of people decide to stay on?
Okay, so the out-migration peaked in 2021 to 2022. It slowed down after that. So for people who migrate, they are usually people who participated in the social movement, and the higher they, more frequent they participate in the social movement, the more likely that they have intention to move, especially for those who have children. And ironically, for this group of people, of course, they care about politics, they worry about democratic backsliding, right? But ironically, the pro-government people, although they have lower intention to move, if they have children, they are actually as likely as the pro-democrats, camp parents who move, right? So this is quite ironic. But the reason, of course, is not political. It's more like they see that Hong Kong's economy is in decline. They also think that it's a good chance for them to obtain more cultural capital. So this is, about the movements. The mobility of people. About the new trend, I would say that more people are returning back to Hong Kong after 2 to 3 years of migration. The major reason, though, is that of the structural constraints that they face abroad. For instance, in Taiwan, transferring a professional license is quite hard, and so that could be, one difficulty.
Like for job seeking, for example, you mean?
Yeah, job seeking, and definitely the governments are sometimes having a higher bar or like becoming more ambiguous into granting citizenship, and in Britain, in Taiwan, so that could make people worry, and people just want to cut the cost. Yeah.
I see. Yeah, that level of, I guess, precarity is always going to be weighing heavily on the minds of any migrants, for sure, in Hong Kong.
Yeah.
Migrants, no less. I know last year, in July 2025, there was an instance where Hong Kong authorities issued bounties on 19 more additional overseas activists or dissidents and added them onto their most wanted list, which was the largest tally ever. What kind of purpose or effect do you think this kind of mass bounty rounds would have, both policy-wise and internal effect on those on the list?
Well, I think it will cause dissidents and in the diaspora community to create some kind of self-censorship, and also those people around them would kind of have fear. This is actually the purpose of issuing the bounty, not really trying to go overseas and catch them and arrest them and deport them back to Hong Kong or China. So I think this is the way to break this is to be united, really, to give a helping hands to these poor people who are kind of defamed by the Hong Kong government. These dissidents who upheld freedom and democracy's values. I think the local government can also help in that sense, because if we don't, then we are actually attracting this kind of forces from outside to kind of breach our national security. So I think this is utmost important.
So I guess finding safety in numbers, finding ways to build community, to pool resources, and in that sense, the host community can also try to actively find ways to help.
Yes.
Isn't it? Okay, and Lake, I have one more question for you, which is an incident that's much more closer to home in Taiwan here. This is what we call a long-arm jurisdiction issue, which is we know that there was a warrant that was issued for a Hong Kong migrant in Taiwan by the name of Fu Tang, who runs a Muay Thai gym in Shilin in northern Taipei. A few days after the warrant was issued, his gym was hit with red paint all over it, potentially, as Casey mentioned, as a potential fear-instilling tactic, if you will. So I'm wondering, what kind of effect would this kind of long-arm jurisdiction threat hovering over Hong Kong migrants abroad, what kind of effect would that have?
This is what we usually say transnational repression, right? And the potential effect is that, to scare the people who seems to be really high profile, especially the high profile activists, right? And also the family members. The family members might, pressurize the activists abroad not to speak up as often, right? It also scare away people who want to be closer to them. So, in order to threaten the activists, actually, they want other people to distance from them. So, so to speak, it's to undermine overseas activism in general. Yeah.
I think something needs to be mentioned regarding the case in the HKETO in UK, the Hong Kong Economic Trade Office case. Right now is going through trial, and this is significant because Hong Kong government seems to be following the tactics of the CCP, building up a foreign police station and troops, linking up with local policemen to illegally breach people's home and potentially trying to kidnap their victim back to China or Hong Kong. I think government really have to have a higher standard to prevent these kind of things happening. For example, you mentioned about Fu Tang's assailants. The Taiwan government almost able to capture the bad guys at the airport, but missed. So they're in a need of a connection between police station and the airport authority. I mean, if we can do that, then no one can get away for the bad guys.
I want to draw our attention to one other story. Let's take a look of the Lennon Tunnel in Taichung in Taiwan. It's Taiwan's only Lennon Wall preserved in a public space. This place contains many records of the 2019 Hong Kong protests that have already been removed by the Hong Kong government inside Hong Kong. These things include the anti-extradition movement protesters, as well as messages written on sticky notes. Casey, you said that the Lennon Wall in Taichung pedestrian tunnel is like a time capsule and is well worth preserving, and that you and a group of volunteers have been regularly and spontaneously maintaining it to add new content as well. So this attempt to, I guess, preserve memories of Hong Kong experience in Taiwan, what do you think has been the progress and perhaps challenges so far in this endeavor?
I think there's a switching role going on between Hong Kong and Taiwan. During the White Terror period of Taiwan, Hong Kong actually was the major publisher for banned books of Taiwan. Books was published from Hong Kong and then shipped over to be sold secretly in Taiwan. So right now, Taiwan is actually picking up this role for Hong Kong. I'm glad to see that, right? A lot of, in the book fairs, for example, you see a lot of interesting books, maybe sensitive books, being displayed in Taiwan. So I think Taiwan and other freedom-loving communities can play this role, to host this kind of civic duty. Lennon Tunnel, Taichung Lennon Wall Tunnel is one of these example, where this spirit was well preserved, in a poster format, and also people can interact with it by leaving messages on the wall. But also other organizations such as Hong Kong Action Archive, HKAA, or Academic Syndicate in Taipei, also have collected artifacts and publishing related materials in their library. As I know, also in the Netherlands, there is an organization have collected a lot of material from 2014's umbrella movement. We're talking about real objects, right? Sculptures, posters, and because I have recently did a show there, they also will be collecting some of my protest videos. So these kind of materials lives outside of the danger zone of Hong Kong, but well guarded abroad, and might be useful for the future. When one day maybe Hong Kong eventually got liberated, and they will need this kind of material to celebrate or to write proper history. So I think it have a tremendous value, and I'm glad to see Taiwan have a role in it.
All right, these are preserving physical embodiment of those important experiences for Hong Kong society.
That's right.
It? So in terms of preserving these artifacts in Taiwan, for example, one thing that we sometimes wonder is that how do you think Taiwanese society as a whole is viewing Hong Kong migration at the moment over time? And do you see Taiwanese public opinion shifting over time towards the presence of Hong Kong migrants? And if so, are they becoming a bit more welcoming or, more indifferent? What's your take?
So during the movement, Taiwanese are very sympathetic to Hong Kong people. We can see that there were like 60 plus protests and assembly all over Taiwan, and also, of course, there was the Lennon Walls as well. But then, being sympathetic is different. It's a separate issue from being welcoming them as immigrants. So what I found in the Taiwan Social Change Survey and my own survey experiment in 2025 is that actually Taiwanese are a little bit ambivalent towards Hong Kong people. The findings show that Taiwan respondents are particularly open to immigrants from the United States and Japan, and the level of openness towards Hong Kongers are actually similar to those from Vietnam and some other Southeast Asian countries. But notably, they are more favorable than towards immigrants from China and from South Asia. So it's like a so-so, not so good, but not so bad. So there are narratives about Hong Kong people being the threat to Taiwan's national security online, and sometimes it is insinuated in some public forums. But then this is, I would say, not a majority. As we can see that Taiwanese have significantly different attitudes towards Hong Kongers and China, people from China. So the distinction is still there.
All right, and how are the Hong Kong migrants doing in Taiwan? I know that your research touches on integration and second generation migrant experiences and outcomes. So how do you think Hong Kongers as a community in Taiwan are settling in?
Overall, Hong Kong people have similar culture with Taiwan. So for that part, I think apart from the accent, everything's fine for that part. But then, as I've also mentioned, the major issue would be the structural integration. Say the wait for them to get citizenship, or it is quite hard for them to find a job, right? Especially if they were previously professionals. It's hard to transfer their licenses in Taiwan. So for that part, that could be a bit hard. So for the second generation, I would say the children of the migrants, right? So for them, they get used to the system really quickly, especially Mandarin. Like my children, they speak better Mandarin than I do. So I don't see that there's a big issue for the children of the migrants. Yeah.
Well, what's your take on in the future? How can Hong Kong migrants or diaspora community, more generally speaking, in Taiwan and beyond, how can they go about maintaining their identity, sustain solidarity with their home communities, and continue to tell the Hong Kong story?
Well, I would like to use the scholar Peter Burke's theory, which is mediation, detachment, and hybridization. Meaning, Hong Konger can mediate between Hong Kong culture and Taiwan culture. So it's like a good connector, okay? Because they're detached in a way. They're kind of new Sinjumin, right? New dwellers here. So everything become fresh to their eyes, and therefore they can see things maybe Taiwanese couldn't see. So these actually have an edge for kind of introducing, for example, this program, right? I am speaking in English to the audience right now in front of the YouTube or TV. So I think this hybridization will happen in the future, like your children, right? So it's not kind of like a singular culture, but a multiple of culture, just like the wonderful Taiwan, or like a cocktail that tastes very good, you know, which is not a singular ingredients, but a mixture of ingredients. I think that's what real culture is. And of course, for Hong Konger, we are not based on a certain location, but a value, which is democracy and freedom.
All
right, thank you for that. Any final thoughts from you, Lake?
On the last question, I think actually a lot of people, the diaspora community, they are working very hard to trying to preserve history, like by having the archive, right? And also, you know, in terms of language transmission, and also to rediscover culture, local culture of Hong Kong. I mean, they have done a lot already. What I want to say is that I hope that I hope to say that actually it's a very difficult time for Hong Kong people around the world, not only for those who are in Hong Kong, but also outside Hong Kong. And yeah, I hope that people can have more understanding towards one another, and also to be to hold on to the conviction, also to continue living in truth. So I guess, yeah, this is my, not suggestion, but my humble wish.
Living in truth.
Yeah, living in truth.
All right, on that note, I'd like to thank you both, Lake and Casey, both so much for your insight, just for coming onto the show today and share your stories.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that's our show. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and come and check us out on YouTube. And until next time, it's good night from us from Taipei.